On this week's Political Figure episode, we've got another one of Kentucky's Massie mistakes, Thomas Massie. Thomas Harold Massie was born January 13th, 1971 in Huntington, West Virginia. You know, the methier of the two Virginias. However, Massie grew up in Vanceburg, Kentucky, where he'd graduate high school before going on to MIT, which is a pretty smart school for somebody who'd end up becoming so painfully stupid. And during his time at MIT, all signs were pointing to Massie becoming a smart, productive member of society. He was part of MIT's solar program and participated in designing and building a solar car that set some lap speed records at Arizona Speedway. He won one of MIT's design competitions. He ended up getting his master's from MIT in electrical engineering and started a company called Sensible Devices, which allowed people to feel the objects that they were seeing on a screen. You know, haptics. And I'm sure the end goal of his design was sex stuff, because why wouldn't it be? Massie's company got pretty big, and he sold it for lots of money in 2003, and then spent the next few years, I don't know, guzzling lead paint, I would assume, because in 2010 he decided he wanted to get into politics as a libertarian. See, when people say a college degree doesn't make you smart, this is the kind of shit I always assume they're talking about. He ran for Lewis County, Kentucky's judge executive and won, which is a position that's not actually a judge, but like sort of a judge. Like, you don't need a law degree for it, but they still call you your honor. It's like a county executive or county mayor. And while doing that, he also campaigned to Tea Party groups on behalf of Senator Rand Paul. Things that make you go, buh. And then in 2012, he resigned that job so he could run for Kentucky's 4th District in the U.S. House of Representatives. He won that race and has been Kentucky's 4th representative ever since. And in true libertarian fashion, he instantly became one of the most annoying people at the party. Running as a Republican, he's obviously often very annoying to the Democrats. But running as a libertarian Republican, he's almost equally, if not more annoying to Republicans. Because libertarians have this habit of never voting the way that anybody wants them to vote, and even when they do vote the way that you want them to vote, they don't vote that way for the reason you wanted them to vote that way. Don't get me wrong, every once in a while they vote in a way where you're like, yay! But most of the time it's more of a, nah. Like, he broke from his party and didn't vote with them on who they wanted for Speaker of the House back before it was cool, when John Boner was still boning us all. He was one of only 3 representatives to vote against the Stolen Valor Act of 2013, I assume because he thinks stolen valor is a form of free speech or something. I don't know, that sounds like some shit a libertarian would say. He was the only congressman to vote against making Israel a strategic partner, which, considering current events and basically all of Israel's history, I'm sure a lot of you heard that and were like, yeah! Until you hear that the only reason he voted against it was because it included subsidizing green energy companies in Israel. Yeah, the dude who got his master's from MIT, where he was on the solar program, hates solar. He helped build a solar-powered car, and now he denies climate change. He was also the only member of the House to vote against sanctioning Iran and North Korea. He voted no on the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019, because libertarians love human rights as long as those human rights don't slightly inconvenience them in any way. And apparently that inconvenience just includes voting yes on something. I don't know if it's because yes has more letters, harder for him to read perhaps, I don't know. But I do know he voted no on a non-binding resolution to denounce anti-Semitism. Just why? And then when the US, who like Massie's dad pulls out of things way too late, was finally getting out of Afghanistan, Massie voted against the Allies Act to expedite visas for Afghan allies of the US military who were in danger of being left in Afghanistan with the Taliban. During COVID, he voted against the Paycheck Protection and Healthcare Enhancement Act. He tried to sue Nancy Pelosi for making him wear a mask in Congress. He voted against giving Jack Nicklaus a gold medal for service to the nation. In fact, he's pretty much voted no on like 1 in 3 of every bills brought to the House floor. More than anybody else in Congress. Also during COVID, when Congress was trying to do things remotely because, you know, they're all fucking ancient and they die really easily from stuff like COVID, Massie forced a quorum vote to make them show up to vote in person for stuff. He also tweeted a quote from a neo-Nazi to criticize Fauci, which wasn't a great look. But with all of that, I will say at least he's pretty consistent on the ways that he votes. Like, when it comes to foreign policy, he's pretty anti-interventionalist across the board. He's voted against funding for Israel's Iron Dome, and was recently the only Republican to vote against condemning the boycott, divestments, and sanctions movement against Israel. He also voted against refusing to recognize Russia's claim to Crimea. He voted against recognizing Ukraine's sovereignty when Russia invaded. He voted against Sweden and Finland joining NATO because he doesn't want a subsidized socialist Europe. And in a similar vein, while we know that he doesn't support us supporting green energy in Israel, he also doesn't support green energy here leader doesn't believe in climate change and wants to dismantle the EPA. Although getting rid of government departments is something he thoroughly enjoys the thought of, as he submitted a bill to abolish the Department of Education as well. I mean, honestly, judging from all the dumb shit he says, the education system obviously failed him, so why wouldn't he want to do away with it for other people's kids? He's also tried to deregulate the transportation and distribution of raw milk, which is a weird regulation to focus on. He's voted against basically anything and everything that would help immigrants, either legally or undocumented, including limiting the number of legal visas and making it easier for ICE to find, detain, and deport undocumented sponsors of unaccompanied alien children. So, like, if you're an undocumented immigrant and you have children here and then you get deported and one of your other undocumented immigrants take your kids in and take care of them, Massie thinks it should be easier for those people to get deported too, because fuck those kids. He also wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Basically, in true libertarian fashion, if it involves spending any of the taxpayers' money on the taxpayers, he's not about that life. Which is why he always votes to block disaster relief. Except for, you know, that one time his state of Kentucky needed some disaster relief, and then he was in favor of it. But every other time, absolutely not. Because he's a man of principle. Speaking of fucked up responses to disasters, him and Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against a nonpartisan resolution to mourn the victims of the Syria-Turkey earthquakes. Like, MTG doing dumb, nonsensical shit because she is desperate for attention makes sense. But, like, why? Why vote against that? Like, it costs us nothing. We're just like, yeah, people are suffering, and, you know, we're probably not going to do a whole lot for you, but we're going to acknowledge that it sucks. And little Tommy over here is like, nah, I will not acknowledge that it sucks for them. I don't know, he does shitty stuff like this all the time, and I guess it makes sense, because to be a libertarian, you can't have a conscience, and if you do anything that might suggest you have a conscience, you might be like the Grinch, and your heart will grow a few sizes, and then suddenly you'll be singing Christmas songs and shit, and nobody wants that. So when he's sitting up there in Congress, and they're like, hey guys, maybe we should condemn anti-Semitism, or protect vets from stolen valor, or give the January 6 officers a medal, or just say it sucks and we're mourning with the people of a horrific natural disaster, he just goes down the voting list and he's like, hate, loathe. You know, it's in the Libertarian Handbook. But to be fair, he also exhibits all of the less shitty qualities of libertarians as well. Not believing in government overreach extends to citizens as well, so he's really critical of the Patriot Act. He defended Edward Snowden, saying he should be pardoned. He believes in legalizing commercial hemp manufacturing and at least medical marijuana. He believes in giving judges more flexibility in criminal sentencing, has pushed for more transparency from the Federal Reserve, all that kind of stuff. He's also been critical of Donald Trump, which is cool, but then he went on to endorse Ron DeFascist, saying that he respects the Constitution, is a strong leader, and puts family first. And I can't help but feel that he's never actually met Ron DeSantis or heard about anything that he's ever done, because I don't know if there is a less accurate description of that thing in Florida. Anyway, this being Kentucky, him being in the position he is doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And while he is being primaried right now by some Republican challengers, he has no Democratic challenger for the general election. And since we don't have any better options, I say he's worth voting for again in the primary, because while he often makes you feel bad about voting in ways that should make you feel good, he's still not afraid to step out of lockstep with his party and vote the right way, even if it's for the wrong reason, which is more than we can say about the Jim Jordans and the Bobos and the Matt Gaetzes. So I guess what I'm saying is I hope this is what Kentucky gets stuck with for a couple more years, and then hopefully they can start getting rid of some trash around there, because they've got a lot of trash that they send to Washington. But folks in Kentucky's 4th, keep your eye out for something slightly less gross in 2026, and we'll deal with this till then.